Hi everyone. So in this lesson, we are learning how to graph circles on the coordinate plane. So on the front of your folder, well, there's just a little bit of things I want you to write down. So the equation of a circle looks like this. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So I know this looks a little bit confusing, but it's not. Okay, so the radius of our circle is just r. This is r squared, so we'll have to take the square root of it to find what the radius is. And then your center is at hk. And if you notice in the formula it says minus, but in our parentheses they're positive. That's because we're subtracting a positive number. So if it would have said plus, it would have been we're subtracting a negative number, so that makes it negative over here. So what you really just have to remember is that it's always opposite of the sign when you find the center. So if they're negative, it'll be positive. If these numbers would be positive, then you would have a negative center. So let's take a look at our examples. I wrote the formula at the top again because you use it for all of it. So instead of starting where we're writing these, I want us to start by graphing at the bottom, okay, because then you kind of understand it a little bit better. Okay, so we need to figure out what our center is and what the radius is. So remember, the radius is the square root of that number that's back there. So the square root of 9 is 3. And then our center is our h and our k, opposite of the signs that are in the equation. So in the equation, they're both negative, so that means our center is actually at positive 3, positive 1. So you always make them opposite of those signs. So then to graph, we just plot our center at 3, 1. And then since our radius is 3, that means that the distance is 3 from the center. So we're going to count up, down, left, and right 3 and plot some points, and then connect the points, and you'll have your circle. I'm going to try to use my compass and see how that works out. Oh, is that perfect? It's really hard to draw circles, so you might want to use, it's hard to do the compass underneath the camera too, but you might want to use your compass if you want them to come out perfectly. Otherwise, mine usually look like a square, not really so much a circle. Okay, so why don't you pause and try example 8. Find your center, your radius, and then graph. I'm pretty sure this one doesn't fit on the graph, so you might have to go over an extra one or two. Okay, so here we go. We got our center is at 2, -1, a radius of 5, so you did have to go over an extra one. As you can see, this circle, I didn't use my compass. It looks bad. So you don't have to use the compass, though. It's fine. As long as your center is right and your distance away from your center is good. Okay, so now that we kind of understand what it is to graph, let's go back and try to write some equations. So our first example up at the top said that they gave us our center and they gave us a radius, and we need to write the equation. So remember that your center is your h and k, your radius is r. So we'll plug all those into our formula. So we would have x minus 2 squared plus y minus -3 squared equals 4 squared. So from there, on this one, we're just going to clean it up a little bit. So it would be x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 equals 16. And that's it. That's the equation of that circle. So why don't you pause and try example 2? So you're doing the same thing. You're writing the equation. Okay, so for example 2, we plugged those in, and since it was minus 0, I just wrote x squared. You don't need to keep the parentheses. So if there's no parentheses, you got to remember that that number would be 0. Okay, so let's try example 3. So now we're trying to write the equation, but this time they gave us a graph. So we still need to find the center and the radius, but we're going to count from the graph. So our center is at -2, 2, 4, -2, positive 4. And then to find your radius, count out up, down, left, or right. So we go 2. So now we just plug them in our formula. So we have x minus -2, which is x plus 2, squared equals y minus 4, or plus y minus 4 squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. And that would be the equation of that circle. So go ahead and pause and try example number 4. Okay, so our center was -2, -1 with a radius of 3. So when we plug in, we get that equation. Good job. You guys are doing good. Okay, so let's take a look at example 5 and 6. So these ones are different because they give us a center, but then they give us a point. They don't give us the radius. So that means we have to work backwards and find what our center, or what the radius would be. Okay, and there's several different methods. You could do it on a graph and then you just use Pythagorean theorem because it makes the right triangle. We're going to plug everything in and work backwards. So this is our h and k, and this is just some random x and y that's on the circle. So if we plug all of those in, the only variable we have left is r, so then we'll be able to find r and plug it back in to write the equation. So we have x minus r, or minus h, sorry, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So now to simplify this, we subtract square things. Remember, when you square negative, it always turns out positive. So we get that r squared is equal to the square root, or r squared equals 29. So if we were going to graph, you would want to take the square roots of both sides so that r is actually equal to the square root of 29, which is some random decimal. But since our formula requires r squared, I'm just going to leave it just like this. Okay, so now from there, we're going to plug in everything like what we did up at the top. So our final answer would be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, which was that 29 we found. So that is the equation of that circle. A lot of people get confused with these and just find r and then stop, but the question asks us to write the equation, so we got to plug them back in. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and try question 6. Go ahead and pause it and try 6. Okay, so for this one, we got our h and k, we plugged everything in, we got that r squared was equal to 53. So then you just plug it in with your h and k, and that's your equation. And that is all for graphing circles on the coordinate plane. Warner out.